Well, hello, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. We are so thrilled to have you today. Obviously, our country has been through a dramatic moment with the onset of COVID-19, but we are making progress as we move forward. And we know that small business owners are the backbone of our country and our society and play such a pivotal role. The team here at the Public-Private Strategies Institute is so thrilled to be able to partner with the U.S. Small Business Administration to be able to convene what we think is such an important conversation. As many of you know, the Biden-Harris administration announced an important set of changes to the PPP program, which we think really provides a great opportunity for America's smallest businesses, those with fewer than 20 employees, and our self-employed businesses. And so today we really want to have a conversation about that, as well as some other important changes. So we're going to highlight what those changes mean. We're going to take as much question and answer as we can. And as you all may have seen, this is actually a series that we're doing throughout the week. So today we're so thrilled to be able to focus in and celebrate women and women business owners and the amazing contribution that they make to our economy and society. So with that, we're going to go ahead and kick the program off. And thank you again for being with us. And it is my extreme pleasure to be able to turn the conversation over to someone who I not only consider to be a colleague, but a dear friend, Carissa Smith, who is recently installed as a senior advisor in the Office of Public Engagement at the White House. So with that, Carissa, we will go ahead and kick things over to you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Rhett, and hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today. I just will be before you for a couple of seconds here, but wanted to just say we are so excited to be teaming up with the SBA and to be here today. As someone who was on the campaign with Brett, it has truly been a pleasure to be working on behalf of the people and be working on behalf of small business owners like yourself, who are all tuned in today to hear about this great information. So just wanted to say, thank you all for joining today. I am in the Office of Public Engagement, specifically working on women and girls, as well as education and health. So what a perfect way to kick off Women's History Month than talking about this with women-owned businesses. So I'm also elated to introduce Candace Waterman. She is the president and CEO of Women Impacting Public Policy. She has over 35 years of experience, both private and public sector, and a true powerhouse. So I'm going to kick it over to Powerhouse Candace. Thank you, Rhett.
Thank you so much, Carissa. I appreciate that, and so good to see you virtually. Hello, everyone. I am Candace Waterman, President and CEO of Women Impacting Public Policy, more lovingly known as WIP. We are the leading national nonpartisan organization representing the country's over 12 million women-owned businesses on the Hill. Our organization focuses on 3 areas. That's advocacy, community, and education, ultimately driving results in economic equity, procurement inclusion, access to capital, and access to the global marketplace. We know the COVID-19 crisis has fueled uncertainty and unveiled peaks and valleys of stability and unpredictability for all of us, particularly as business leaders and business owners. Each of us has had to navigate a different path, but all really on the same journey of economic recovery. Recent studies have shown that women are the fastest growing segment of small businesses for the past decades. They are huge job creators and stabilizers of the economy. While this is really great news, women have also only received a small fraction of the funds and capital needed for growth and sustainability. Women-owned businesses and women in the workforce have come face to face with some of the harshest realities during this pandemic. And as a result, by growing number of women who have left the workforce, closed their businesses, and unfortunately laid off employees. That is why today's conversation is so important and welcomed. As the vaccine continues to be distributed and COVID cases decrease in many areas, we are at a pivotal point in the recovery process. We are proud to have collaborated with the SBA and the Association of Women's Business Centers to facilitate this very important discussion. These kinds of conversations are paramount to ensuring all businesses have equitable access and the resources that they need to see the other side of the pandemic. Women business owners need the resources to assist their businesses so they can in turn continue to cultivate job opportunities and fuel growth and economic development in our country. In closing, WIP will continue in collaboration with stakeholder groups and maintain its position at the forefront of advocating for women in business, providing information and resources, and building an ecosystem of success for women businesses across this country.
Thanks, Candace. The next speaker you hear from is Cynthia Jasso Rotuno. She's the Associate Administrator of the Office of Communications and Public Liaison with the Small Business Administration.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you so much. And to Carissa, to Candace, to Rhett and your team over at PPS for working with us to organize this webinar. I'm thrilled to welcome everyone here today to the SBA and thank everyone on this webinar, especially our women business owners, leaders of women community organizations, and of course our allies, because we all know that women are the backbone of this economy. You know, I can't believe it's just 44 days since January 20th, where I officially joined the SBA team to help lead the effort to engage the public in our critical work. And I want to make sure that you know that I'm an extension of you, and I'm here to be of service. I chose public service actually for the fourth time because the situation is dire for our small business community. This work is important, it's urgent, and it's also very personal. I was fortunate to grow up in South Texas with many strong women in my life. My grandmother, my mom, my aunts, my cousins. We all worked in a small family business or tortilla factory where my grandmother made tortillas. We grew that into a regional food distributor business. That's what helped me get my tuition for college, and I was the first in my family to graduate from college. So I know the value of what a small business can provide. I know the dreams that it can accomplish, and right now dreams are being deferred. And that's why we're here. We're here to make sure that dreams no longer get deferred. It's not without coincidence that we chose to start this webinar series, this week-long webinar series with women business owners during Women's History Month. And with that, I want to kick it over to my wonderful colleague, the fabulous founder and former CEO of Walker's Legacy, our new Assistant Administrator for the Office of Women's Business Ownership, Ms. Natalie Cofield. Natalie?
Thank you so much for that, Cynthia. I am absolutely honored to be here and joining all of you today, the start of Women's History Month. As Cynthia just mentioned, my name is Natalie Madeira Cofield, and I have the honor of serving as the Assistant Administrator for the Office of Women's Business Ownership at the Small Business Administration. I'm excited to be here with so many women leaders and business owners. Today is actually my third day on the job since I was officially sworn into the Biden administration on March 1st. And I could not think of anywhere else that I'd rather be. And I couldn't have picked a better time to join to support the critical work of empowering women entrepreneurs than Women's History Month. For the last 15 years, I have worked as a champion for inclusive entrepreneurship and economic policy in cities across the country. I have also been on the front lines as an entrepreneur and nonprofit leader, championing the needs and supports of women. As such, I completely understand the challenges and needs of both enterprising women as well as the institutions that serve them. We all know that the pandemic has hit our small businesses hard. We also know that the pandemic has hit businesses owned by communities of color and women even harder. Know that the Small Business Administration and the White House are working hand in hand to ensure we do everything in our power to equitably support our small businesses with crucial relief funds, no matter which zip code they are in. Now, before I hand it over, I wanted to quickly touch upon President Biden's historic $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, a plan that could change the course of the pandemic to build a bridge toward economic recovery. There's a lot of talk about this, so I want you all to hear this straight from me. Here's what it will do if passed in Congress. in addition to everything we're already doing. $15 billion in grants to hardest hit small businesses, $10 billion of investment to successful state, local, and tribal businesses financing programs to help small businesses innovate, create, and maintain jobs and provide the essential goods and services that communities depend on. $25 billion in grants for small restaurants that have lost substantial revenue. It would also devote an additional $1.25 billion in funding to support live venue operators, theater producers, live performing arts organization operators, museum operators, motion picture theater operators, and talent representatives that are struggling to make ends meet. And finally, an additional $7.25 billion in funding for the Paycheck Protection Program. And the Small Business Administration will be investing significantly into underserved communities through initiatives such as the Community Navigators Program. And I'm excited to share that this program will commence with the Women's Business Center Network. We are at a critical juncture. Without more relief, the economic crisis could worsen in months ahead. Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to hand it over to Patrick Kelly, the new Associate Administrator for Capital Access, who is going to talk about the new changes to the PPP loan program and how it's expanding access to small business owners like you.
Thanks, Natalie. Hi, everyone. Thank you again for being on the webinar and to learn about these important changes to the PPP program. As Natalie mentioned in her intro, the office I'm in charge of, the Office of Capital Access at the Small Business Administration, oversees the Paycheck Protection Program. And I'm excited to get a chance to tell you more about how we are addressing all of the issues and needs that small businesses have voiced to the administration. I recently come from the nation's #1 SBA lender, Live Oak Bank, where I was in charge of helping leverage our technology platform with making access to capital easier for small business borrowers. I also stood up a business unit to help federal government contractors, small businesses, 8A, HubZone, et cetera, grow in the federal space by accessing capital. My goal is to help small business communities, and there's no greater need right now than ensuring that they have access to capital, that it's fast and accessible. Too many of you on this call know or perhaps are experiencing how devastating this pandemic has been to your businesses and to Main Street across the country. The SBA and the Biden-Harris administration is making it its top priority to course correct. First, I want to just share some high-level numbers about some positive developments over the last few weeks since the administration took shape. The share of funding going to small businesses with fewer than 10 employees is up nearly 60%. The share of funding going to small businesses in rural areas is up nearly 30%. And the share of funding being distributed by all of our lending partners across banks, credit unions, MDI, community development financial institutions is up. This is good progress, but we know that the work doesn't stop there because there's too many small businesses that are falling behind. And so last week, President Biden made significant changes to the PPP to ensure that small businesses that need the help the most have access to it. And here's how we are doing it. First, and this is a really important change, we are allowing sole proprietors, independent contractors, self-employed individuals to receive more financial support by revising the PPP's funding formula for these categories of applicants. This is a really important change because many of you can attest to the fact that the net income calculation was unfair. And so we will be announcing a gross income formula, which will give these businesses greater funds. We're eliminating exclusionary restrictions on PPP access for small business owners with prior non-fraud felony convictions. This is consistent with a bipartisan congressional proposal We're eliminating PPP access restrictions on small business owners who have struggled to make student loan payments by eliminating student loan debt delinquency as a disqualifier to participate in PPP, and ensuring access to non-citizen small business owners who are lawful U.S. residents by clarifying that they may use the individual tax identification number, or ITIN, to apply for PPP. With that, I'll pause here and hand it back over to Renee.
Thanks so much, Patrick. And we know that there are tons of questions that people have. They're coming in from the chat. We received some yesterday. So again, reiterating what Stefan said on the onset of the call, we are not going to answer anyone's specific question, meaning if your personal situation, but more so general questions, because there's quite a lot that impact numerous small business owners on the call. So I'd like to start with one question received was, what if I received funding during the first round, but it wasn't enough for my business? Am I eligible currently for additional funds?
Yeah, and I apologize. There's in the audio, the beginning part of the question just trailed off a little bit. Would you mind just repeating that question just really quickly? I got the tail end of it, and I'm happy to address it.
Yeah, essentially, received funding first round wasn't enough. Am I still eligible to obtain funds currently?
Yes. So, okay, good question. And so specifically, yes. So you are eligible for a second draw loan under the PPP program that's in place right now. Depending on the status of your business, one of the reasons that you may not have received the funds that you felt you were eligible for is because, in fact, you are a sole proprietor, independent contractor, or self-employed individual. And the formula for calculating your eligibility for funds didn't work for the majority of businesses from those categories. So specifically, what President Biden announced last week was a new formula which allows you to calculate your eligible funds from gross income. This will enable the lending intermediaries, whether it's a FDIC insured bank, a credit union, a state chartered bank, a certified development financial institution, a minority deposit institution, whichever intermediary you want to access, they will be able to be more flexible in the calculation of the funds that are available to you. If you're a multi-employee firm and you think that you are eligible for funds, you're eligible for a second draw as well. And that program is currently up and accessible by all of those lending intermediaries across the country.
Thank you. The next question is, will the new rules be retroactive?
So no. Let me say this: you will be eligible for a loan increase on your first draw. If you received a first draw, the eligibility of the rule criteria allows you to access a loan increase. And obviously, if you are seeking first draw, the rules will be in place for your first draw.
Great. When will lenders know about the new self-employed rules?
Today, we are finalizing the publication of the IFR and forms associated with that sole proprietor, independent contractor, and self-employed individual. So it should be published today, and the technology should be coming online in the days to come. And we're working as fast as possible to make sure it's up and running before the program's end date, which is March 31st currently.
We have a lot of questions about this, which is generally opened a new business in 2020, and they do not have any 2019 reference documents and payment structures. Do they qualify currently for PPP?
This is a difficult question because it depends on your individual circumstances, and so what I don't have the perfect answer that will solve this large a form, but what I would ask you to do is to work with your either the bank that you bank with, credit union, etc., or you can access some of the resource partners who across the SBA footprint, which Natalie is now in charge of one of those such centers, but there are small business development centers in communities all across the country, as well as 68 district offices. In each district office, there's a lender relations specialist. They will be able to point you in the direction of institutions that are currently accepting applications for second draws and first draws. And you can work through them to figure out the circumstances for your unique circumstance.
Awesome. Do you need good credit to acquire a loan?
I assume what's meant by that is for the PPP program. So I'll answer it both ways. So PPP is different than a traditional loan. It was designed without, for the most part, underwriting criteria that's traditionally associated with a loan. So if you are an eligible business, you can qualify for a PPP loan, and the presumption is that your credit may not be good because, for example, this pandemic has raged now for almost a year, and that can be impacting a small business owner. So for PPP, the point of it is to deal with businesses who are likely have impaired credit scores. Traditionally, loans do take into evaluation the tri-score, which is like the Equifax TransUnion type score, as a part of their lending decision. Traditionally, for SBA loans, have enabled their lending intermediaries, so certified development financial institutions and MDIs through the SBA's Community Advantage Program, or state chartered, federally chartered banks and credit unions, to extend their credit box to lower credit scores. So traditionally, a bank would make a loan to someone with a score, 700 or higher, but the SBA program typically enables them to lend to a lower score, more in the range of 625 to 650. So that's the thought on that.
Awesome. What about those who have bankruptcy issues? We've had quite a few people write in and wondering if they have filed for bankruptcy, whether it was in 2019, 2020, would that prevent them from obtaining a loan?
Yeah, so bankruptcy is another issue that is probably best handled on a case-by-case basis offline, and I realize that's suboptimal for a national webinar, but I would encourage those folks who have attended the call today that are wondering about their eligibility for PPP with a prior bankruptcy to reach out to me directly. My email address is patrick.kelly, Kelley, @sba.gov, and I'm happy to provide some information on that.
Great. I also want to turn to formerly incarcerated returning citizens. There were some changes made to eligibility for those who were formerly incarcerated. What are those changes, and how does that impact those small business owners?
So traditionally, organizations in the private sector as well as the public sector have effectively taken the stance that if you have a prior conviction, even if you have that's non-fraud related in the case of lending, that this is somehow a indicator of your character and therefore your propensity to repay debt. And so what's really positive about the bipartisan support in Congress, as well as President Biden's announcement last week, is that what we're saying with the change is, if you've done your time for whatever reason, and as long as that felony conviction, for example, is not related to fraud, so you perpetuated financial service fraud, that you've done your time, paid your debt to society, and that you should, no different from someone who's never had an incident or a conviction, be eligible to apply for and receive these benefits. To me, it means that we are finally correcting a wrong and allowing people who have made a mistake atone for it to participate meaningfully in these programs. Traditionally, in SBA 7A loan programs, there are questions on the Form 1919 that have asked these questions, and there was a path for lenders and the SBA to allow for access, but it often required additional documentation and background checks and so forth. And so I think what you'll continue to see with the Biden administration is if you have done your time, that's what was asked of you, and you now should have all the rights that anybody else would, and accept and be able to access the programs that you need to help your small business grow.
Thank you. Want to also hop into immigrant communities. We know that there were changes into that too. We're seeing some questions about what does it mean to be here lawfully with the new change. So are you able to elaborate more specifically for the immigration status issues or what have you on that rule change?
Yeah, so I can speak to the what the program specifically is asking of folks, which is to demonstrate a tax identification number to qualify. Legal status is a broader question, and I prefer not commenting on that broader status. But I guess we can follow up with the Office of Communication and Public Liaison and post what we mean by legal status, and I think that would be the best way to address that.
Thank you. We have another kind of general question that we're seeing is, can you explain the process to get a PPP that has already been funded using the net number with the new formula?
Yeah, so I assume what they're talking about is that perhaps a loan increase on a first draw. And so you can work with the originator of your first loan, and they now have the ability to process a loan increase, which is a standard thing in banking. It's a loan modification to make you eligible for additional funds.
Great. Can small business owners use the first quarter of 2020 compared to their first quarter 2021 to meet the 25% loss requirement?
I don't believe so. I believe that the timeframes were, I want to say I apologize. I think I'd prefer to just, it's escaping me whether that's eligible. I believe it's not. I believe that it's the first quarter of 2020, second quarter, third quarter, as compared to the similar quarter in 2019. But we can follow up with the group with posting the correction if I'm wrong.
Great, thank you. Another one we're seeing a ton of is there are small business owners who are trying to hire right now. Are they able to use PPP funding to hire new employees?
Yes. So, well, in the sense that there's a calculation that's based on, 2.5 times payroll, and there are additional eligible uses of that proceeds. So 40% of the funds can go to that. But it is a good way that you are able to apply for and receive funds that you can apply to payroll.
Great. A few people want to ask this question, and it's twofold. Are any of the PPP deadlines being extended, whether it's the March 9th deadline for sole proprietors or the completion of March 31st of the PPP program?
Yeah. So first off, the announcement last week regarding March 9th was essentially the administration deciding to advantage businesses that only have 20 employees or less. So what we were saying is we want to make sure that the smallest businesses, or as President Biden described them, the mom and pop businesses on Main Street, are first in line to access these funds. And so that period of time advantages you if you're a sole proprietor. On March 10th, you are still able to apply, and any business with 20 or less employees is still able to apply. And in fact, 91% of the originations under the latest version of this round are in fact to businesses with 20 or less. So that deadline ends your exclusivity to obtain a loan authorization in the PPP, but it doesn't prevent you on the 10th. Second, with respect to the March 31st deadline, in order to extend the deadline, we need Congress to act. I know this PPP program has been a program with bipartisan support. I know there are discussions going on, and so stay tuned to whether or not it's extended. Additionally, the Biden administration, if it's not extended, is working on announcements to allow lenders the flexibility to obtain a PPP loan authorization ahead of the March 31st deadline, but disperse the funds after the March 31st deadline. So if you are following, if you apply up to that last day, it will give the lender the flexibility to disperse the funds in April, potentially, even as the program has expired if Congress does not extend it.
Thank you. There's some confusion, it looks like, with a lot of these questions too, about forgiveness. What's the process for the first loan forgiveness? And then secondly, what are the conditions for the second draw and forgiveness?
Yeah. So forgiveness. So first off, you do not have to have your loan forgiven, your first draw forgiven, to apply for a second draw. What you do need to do is attest that the proceeds from your first draw were used for eligible purposes and within the covered period, which is either 8 weeks or 24 weeks, depending on what you select. So that's the first thing. There was confusion, I think, for a period of time that you had to have been processed. You had to have had your application for forgiveness, fully decisioned by the lender and SBA. That is not the case. Although if you have had that, that's great, and more than a third of the businesses in the country that receive PPP funds have been fully forgiven. And I should tell you that 99.1% of those, of a third of the 5.2 million individual PPP loans have been forgiven in full. So I do also want to let you know that the goal is to forgive these loans. The lenders and the SBA, want to forgive the loans. That was the promise made to you as small businesses by Congress and the prior administration, and it's been carried forward by this administration. That's first. Second, with respect to second draws and first draws, the forgiveness rules that were in place for the first for the loans originated in 2020 continues. And so if you have a loan up to 150,000, there's a new streamlined process that came online around the holiday season that enables, through attestation, a very expedited processing. That's important because over 80% of the outstanding 5.2 million loans are under 150,000, and you are able to apply through your lender, and they will be able to process and decision that and send that on to the SBA, and encourage you to do that.
Thank you. We're gonna get through a couple more because we're almost gonna be at time soon. Can PPP be used for employees paying their employees while they are receiving shared work benefits through ESD?
I do not know the answer to that question. I apologize. So if you could shoot me that question,
Yep.
I would be happy to get an answer for you.
Yeah, and then let's just get into the contractor side. There's quite a few contractors on the call, and I mean by independent contractors. Some confusion about S Corp, C Corp, how they're able or if they're eligible for any PPP loans.
I apologize if you could just repeat that again. It just cut out for a second there. So just repeat the question.
Yes, so wanted you to kind of just talk through independent contractors, regardless of their status, S Corp or C Corp or LLC, how or if they are eligible for PPP loans.
Yes, so independent contractors are eligible for PPP loans, and one of the significant changes that we made, or President Biden announced last week, enables independent contractors to demonstrate gross income as opposed to net income in order to qualify for funds under PPP. There are lenders out there that are targeting that market segment, again, there are resources, Lender Match on SBA.gov, where you can go to find lenders that can assist you with obtaining funds. And there are resource partners that can also be located through SBA.gov to assist you with finding lending intermediaries that will help you obtain the funds.
Awesome. We're going to have two more questions for you. Want to thank you, Patrick, too, for taking time and kind of just jumping into a wide range of questions out here. How do you claim retention tax credit funds for the time period where you did not receive PPP money?
So I'm not a CPA, and for example, one of the things that we've encouraged when I was at a bank, and I know that this has been pretty universally encouraged across the lenders that made PPP loans, that when you're dealing with tax issues, it's best to access the CPA, and there are resource partners through AICPA.com that you can find CPAs to assist you with those type of questions.
Great, thank you. Patrick, we're going to turn it back over to you guys at the SBA to talk about resources and connecting to the SBA for those additional questions or seeking some assistance.
As it relates to resources, one that I certainly want to make sure that folks are aware of is our 136 centers for our women's business centers. And so I would encourage people to learn more about them. to engage with them. And you can find out more information about the Women's Business Centers through the Association for Women's Business Centers or through our site at sba.gov.
Thanks so much. And that was Natalie. Want to now turn to Corinne Hodges. She's the CEO of the Association of Women Business Centers.
Thank you so much. And Patrick, that was a really technical list of questions, and I applaud you for tackling those. It's sometimes hard for any one person to have all of the answers, and that's why you've got such a tremendous huge group of organizations that are on this call today. So I'm so excited to be here. As the CEO of the Association of Women's Business Centers, I work each and every day to help ignite opportunities for women who want to start and grow their businesses through that support of 136 women's business centers nationally. And thanks to the funding afforded through the CARES Act in 2020 and a record expansion of our program in January 2021, there are more women's business center resources available in your communities than ever before in history. And it's really no coincidence that women are breaking barriers and making their dreams come true right here and now during Women's History Month. It's really the power of SBA, along with the synergy of all of the organizations on this call today, that are behind each and every one of you and your success, current and future. And likewise, women's business centers are here for you. You just have to connect with one near you. And I know that we've referenced that already, but you can find one by going to awbc.org and click the WBC locator at the top of the page. It's easy to search. You can search by zip code, you can search by city in your community, you can browse around the Google map. And women's business centers are there to help answer your questions and direct you to the right resources, whatever they are. So thanks to funding from SBA, women's business centers provide free counseling, free and low-cost training and connections to all of the resources you need to ignite, survive, and thrive in your business ventures. And there's more that I could tell you. I mean, Congress directed the Association of Women's Business Centers in America's SBDC to stand up a website that consolidates federal agency information and resources for small businesses of all types at covid-sb.org. And the Find Local Assistance link there returns search results for women's business centers, as well as several of SBA's other resource partners like SBDC, SCORE Mentors, and Veterans Business Outreach Centers. And so with all of the resources that you've been given today, I hope that you'll be able to find all of the answers to all of your questions, PPP and beyond. And so thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you. We're here with you in your journey.
Thanks so much, Corinne. Want to say a huge thank you to the Small Business Administration, to Cynthia, Han, Susan, Patrick, Natalie, to Carissa at the White House. Especially thanks to the team at PPSI, and also to our amazing stakeholders that were on the call today, Candace of WIP, Women Impacting Public Policy, and Corinne Hodges of the Association of Women Business Centers. We also want to thank our other stakeholders that were so helpful in getting the word out today, and also bringing so many of you to this call to get all these amazing questions and resources. Huge shout out to Greater Augusta Black Chamber of Commerce, the National Urban League, and the Fresno Metro Black Chamber of Commerce. With that, we would like to let you all know that there are several other opportunities within this series to hear, learn, and speak to the SBA as well. That email that was sent out gave the directions on how to register for the upcoming events, but there is another one tomorrow. There are two on Friday, one on Saturday, and one on Monday. So please share with your friends, your networks, and fellow small business owners so that they can participate and hear some of this amazing information as well. And then finally, there will be a recording of this posted. So you can rewatch, send this out to others who may not have been able to attend today for them to learn additional information. That will be in your inbox shortly. And additionally, again, we suggest that if you know of other people who have not attended today, to please let them know that there's 5 other events this week going on, and they definitely should register as soon as possible. Without anything else, we want to again thank the team at the SBA, all of our wonderful speakers and stakeholders that were part of the call, and to you, all you small business owners who are out here every day doing the things you love and thriving successfully. And we appreciate all the work that you all do. With that said, we thank you again for joining us today.